another episode of The Man Space. My new co-host, my dear friend Kunle, and I are super excited to kick off our new journey together and thrilled to have Christopher Rausch as our initial guest. And we do The Man Space for a very important reason. The world is focused on empowering women to give a space and places for the masculine energy of women to take root so that they have goals, they have success, and they can break the glass ceiling professionally and get to where they need to and want to get to. But the world has left the empowerment of men behind. Empowering men is about giving them the femininity energy of being able to feel and care and talk and deal with emotions and truly understand and accept the fact that regardless of our gender, we embody both energies. And ultimately, we are feeling beings who happen to have the capacity to think and act. And so empowering men for me is a personal mission because we can't raise sons to not feel and not talk about feelings and then punish our husbands for not feeling and talk about feelings. We can't have it both ways. So as a woman, I am stepping into the light and saying, I need to take this journey along with my guy friends and my brothers from other mothers. And we need to do this right for men because empowered women need empowered men to share their life. And we can't tilt it one way or the other. We have to keep it balanced. So thank you so much, Chris, for being our guest today. And for those of you who are meeting Chris for the first time, he is a no-nonsense coach. He will say it the way it is, and he will get you out of your funk and unleash your potential for you to go after what you believe you deserve. And sometimes you secretly dream it, but you're afraid to believe, and he is going to unleash that for you. So as we kick this off, Chris, what got you as a guy into this field? And how have you seen yourself transform as you help others transform?
Wow, it's a great question. It's an honor to be here with you guys. I appreciate you guys having me here. And I appreciate the fact that you're doing this for men because you're absolutely right. There are so many men out there who have been brought up to, to be a man and don't cry and all these different things that we're conditioned to believe as kids, especially as young men. It's pretty incredible how bad that can mess us up. And for me, my journey in my youth was very challenging. I was homeless at the age of 13 years old. I lived on the streets for 4 years. I had 2 failed suicide attempts. I got carjacked. And then ultimately, when I had a gun put to my head, I told the guy to pull the trigger. And I thought my life was going to be over. And thankfully, he didn't pull the trigger. And thankfully, I got to the point where I decided to make a decision for myself. I was either going to get out of the situation in a cop car because I was doing bad things with bad people. I was going to get out of it in a pine box because, again, I was doing bad things with bad people. Or the third one, I had to take responsibility for my life and leave a very tough situation with my mother in it to go live my life. And as a result of that, I never told anybody I was homeless. I was too embarrassed. I was very protective of what had happened to me. And I just put on this fakeness about me that I was this macho man and I had it all together. But when I started realizing that when I shared my story with a few key individuals, I found that they started sharing with me. And this was in the corporate environment. People would come into my office in corporate. I was the director of operations, and they would come in for a business question, but they would leave 45 minutes, an hour later going, Chris, I can't believe I just told you that. And especially guys, they're like, oh man, I thought you were this macho guy and the strong guy and everything. And you're actually really vulnerable. You're in touch with your feelings. I need to be more like that. And so in answer to your question, it just became like a drug. I realized that I could share my story, my vulnerabilities, my fears, and have other people share theirs as well and find a commonality in healing and understanding no matter what backgrounds we had. I started realizing that we're more the same than we are different. And it just became like a drug. And I've been doing it for over 25 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot more to
That's
it, but that's the encapsulated version.
wow. That's a lot. That's a lot that you've just put together right in there, Chris. That's so, and that's like that's like the picture we have in the world right now, in the society, about about our men. And I mean, what I just want to ask at this point in time is your perspective about what is fueling this in the society. Why do you think people keep telling our men to man up, to bottle up their emotions, to not show their emotions? What do you think is fueling this in the society, Chris?
That's a great question, Kunle. I think it's a perspective that if you appear to be strong, then people will perceive you as being strong, and then if strong people succeed. But it's actually the contrary, because if we keep all those emotions bottled up inside, I found that we either suppress our emotions, we repress our emotions, or we express our emotions. And I found the people that suppress them and repress them, that builds up like a time bomb. And we've all seen people get to that breaking point where they have snapped. And it's my goal and my intention that we can have those open and honest communications now and be able to reframe our perspectives about our past, present, and our future, so that we're empowered for ourselves, and that we don't feel that it's a part of our ego to be living in this world, that it's a part of our soul to be living here and sharing who we truly are with others. And that way we have that interconnectedness, and we can find a little bit more peace in this world where there's so much anger and animosity, because we're all fighting each other. We're all trying to prove how smart we are and prove how much money we have and how much power we have. You see it all over the place, and it's absolutely ridiculous, because we're not going to take any of it with us when we go. And so I teach people how to have that ability to sit there and say, you know what? I accept the situations that have happened in my life, and I understand that it's all preparing me for what's next. And that's really what I try to teach people, that everything that's happened in your life is preparing you for what's next. You have to have that perspective about it.
Absolutely. And what I love about you, Chris, is you show up the way you do, but you do not fit the stereotype people place on you based on how you look.
Oh, yeah.
And that in itself is empowering to me to watch, right?
Thank you.
And it also forces people to stop stereotyping, because there is no such thing. No two of us are alike, and don't put labels on us. So my question is, you're a dad to a son.
Yes, I am.
How are you raising your son given your life journey? And how is he showing up in this world?
Oh, I love talking about my son. My son's Jackson. He's 7 years old. Adopted him from birth, so I became a dad very late in life at 47. He has reframed my perspective about love. He's reframed my perspective about what's most important in this world. Before, it was all about egoic stuff. It was about changing the world. It was about leaving this huge legacy, about conquering all these different things. And then ultimately, I actually realized, this was a couple of weeks ago. Honestly, guys, I realized, and because I've written my eulogy before, so I know what my end game is. I know what I want to be remembered for. And I thought, okay, every day I get up and I set that intention to fulfill that legacy. But really, my legacy is breaking the generational curse, I guess, if you will, that's happened in our family. There was a history of abuse. I was physically and mentally abused. My mother was physically and mentally abused. My sister was physically and mentally abused. And so it was up to me to decide, to make that choice, to not follow in those footsteps, not follow in the footsteps of abuse, not follow in the footsteps of blame and victimization. And so with my son, I am proud to say I've never laid a hand on him. We've always used talking and love and constructive feedback. And it has reframed my perspective about how we can effectively grow up in tough times without having to be tough people. And that it's more important to share your soul and to share your heart with people, to build that connection. Because when you have that connection with people, especially your kids, then you have trust. And that's one of the things that we don't focus a lot in this world today, is building trust. And I do that by seeking first to understand, then to be understood. And that's one of the generational curses that I had to break with my mom, because she always had to be understood and she never wanted to understand anybody else. And so by watching her and realizing, if I do things differently than she did, perhaps I'll get different results. And so I'm happy to say that I've been raising my son, and it's all about love. It's all about being intentionally in the moment, right? So many times we're in our head about the future. We're worried about the future. We're planning the future, or we're pontificating about the past and being mad or being upset or blaming or accusing and everything else, that we're never present in the moment. So he has taught me, without a doubt, to be present in the moment and really enjoy those moments. And when you do, that creates an amazing life, because it compounds on itself, and it's truly beautiful. The best human that's ever come into my life is my son.
That is amazing. And I love to watch you talk about your son. I've seen this before, right? And I am super excited for how he is shaping you and you are shaping in. Go ahead, Kunle. I know you have a question ready and waiting for Chris.
I think that has been amazing what you've been saying, Chris, and a lot of insights to gain from that. How we have to build trust in ourselves, and then how we have to also use that to build a better society of men and women, living together and creating, great impacts together. And one thing that keeps reoccurring is the fact that you took responsibility of this particular thing that you are doing, how you have to own up, and how you have to also own up to your own vulnerability, which a lot of people, want to deny in our world today. I really want you to speak to taking responsibility for all the men who are watching out there, which is one of the prime reasons we are doing this program, how they could, go ahead and take responsibility of their own lives, regardless of what the society is saying, regardless of the stigma in the society, which would break the jinx that already exist in this space in one way or the other, Chris.
Kunle, that's a great question. I haven't been asked that question before, so I love that. Responsibility is the R word, right? So many people have challenges with the F word and the S word and all these other things, but the R word, taking that responsibility. I'll tell you a quick story. My sister is 7 years older than me. She's from a different father, and I lost contact with her when she was 16 and I was 9. And I didn't see her again until my mid 30s. And so I grew up with my mom being homeless, having more physical abuse, going through all those different things, taking care of her, being there for her in so many different situations that my sister never did. But when I reunited with my sister in 2005, some 20, 30 years later, I was shocked to find out that my sister turned out exactly like my mom, had a ton of cats, a bunch of books. But the most important and the common characteristic is they both blamed everybody else for their problems. They never took responsibility. They never took that responsibility to say, hey, listen, it happened to me once, but I keep doing it over and over again in my brain. I'm the one that's playing that victim role. I'm the one that says, okay, the reason why I am is because of you and because of you and because of this and because of that. When I reunited with my sister, I'm very successful. I got a master's degree. I went back to school after I dropped out. I was very successful. I owned 2 houses, blah, blah, blah. And my sister said to me, she goes, baby brother, how did you not turn out like mom? And I simply said, I took responsibility for my actions, for my perspective, for my choices. I didn't blame mom. Instead, I chose to see mom as a 4-year-old girl who was victimized and abused back in a time where life was different. And I decided that I can either continue giving up my power to her and blame her and be resentful and be angry, or I can have forgiveness and empathy for that little girl that she experienced all those different things and didn't know any better. She did the best she could with what she had. It's up to us. It's up to us to sit there and say, hey, that was preparing me for what's happening now. So when I look back on my life, guys, I've had a lot of terrible things happen to me, a lot. But I'm grateful for them because in those moments, I took responsibility to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to let your opinion of me, your actions with me dictate what I do futurely. And so unfortunately, I had to wish my sister well because she was so stuck in that victimization mode. I was not going to allow that toxicity in my life. And so sometimes we have to make those choices. But when we take that ultimate responsibility, that's a gift to ourselves. And then we let go of that anger and that animosity. That opens our space up for love. And that's really important, to love ourselves and to love other people and to love being in the moment, because otherwise you're going to end your life with regrets and you're going to be very disappointed at the fact that you let everybody else dictate what it is that you did in your life. And I think that's an absolute shame.
Exactly. I come from a part of the world that believes when you hold on to anger and hate, it's like taking a hunk of burning charcoal and holding it tight in your hand. It's going to burn you. It's going to destroy you. And there is peace and joy in just opening your hand and letting it go. So I'm happy to see you do that. And your son, you don't have to teach him that. He's learning by watching. My question is, how do you help American-born and raised folks who believe in individuality and me and myself? 3 people, right? I, me, myself is what we care about. And it's my success. It is chasing success. Everything is, from a flip side, what we shouldn't be doing. Right. But the society has indoctrinated people to believe that that's what you should be doing. So when you're coaching them and you are bringing them through a journey of no nonsense, what are you seeing And how are you watching them transform? What are those triggers that are helping them transform?
That's a great question. The triggers that are helping them transform is reshaping their perspective. If you're either get two choices, you either get to be a victor or you get to be a victim. And it's really about the things that you say to yourself. Oh, I'm this way because of that. You're giving your power away because you're allowing somebody else to have that control over you, that's of over a situation that happened a long time ago. And so what I help people do is I help them reframe their perspective about their past, present, and their future to help empower them to say, what would life feel like if you no longer had that anger or animosity about those people that wronged you? How would it feel if you weren't carrying that load of problems and all the excuses in your life? You're carrying that bag around going, oh God, look at me. I had a tough childhood. Oh God, look at me. My husband beat me. Oh God, look at me. I've been betrayed by. You're walking around with that bag. What would it feel like if you just let that bag go? And the way we do it is we find empathy and forgiveness for people. And it's something that's not talked about a lot of times. People sit there and say, I'm never going to forgive that person. Okay, understand that person, may have gone through some experiences in their life that helped them become the person that they are at. And they didn't have the opportunity that we have today to be able to take a step back and really do our own personal research and find out what it is that we can do to change ourselves. It's about that proactive responsibility. I wouldn't be sitting here today, guys, if somebody didn't hand me Tony Robbins cassette tapes when I was 16 years old and said, here, listen to this guy. And so it's become a personal mission of mine to be continually adventurous and curious about how I can reshape my perspective about my past, present, and my future so that I don't wind up being a victim. And it's about, surrounding ourselves with the right people. And what I invite people to do is to take out a piece of paper and write down the 5 people you're around the most. Stephen Covey talks about this in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The 5 people you're around the most. Do they support you? Do they encourage you to get out of your comfort zone? Do they want you to go take chances? Do they want you to go live your life? Do they want you to give up the things that aren't working for you spiritually, emotionally, physically? Those 5 people in your life have to be those people that are the people you trust, the people that empower you, the people that hold you accountable, the people that mentor you, and they can't be the same person. And when we do that, guys, it's pretty incredible when you surround yourself with those people that support you and say, hey, Chris, go after that. Quit your day job, even though you make a lot of money. Hey, Chris, go coach people because that's what's in your heart and your passion. That's when things really start to shift, when you have the right people in your life. But so many times we have those fellow victims in our life and we sit there and we support each other. Oh, it's okay, Dr. Cass, you had a terrible life. It's okay that you're overweight, and it's okay that you're on medication. It's okay that you're a victim. That's ridiculous. You want people in your life to say, hey, listen, that happened 25 years ago. You are the one that keeps beating yourself up in your brain about that holds yourself back. What would it feel like to let go? And so what I encourage people to do is to reframe their perspective by having a big why. Right? So many people are just existing day to day, hoping, wishing, and praying that someday, which does not exist on a calendar, then they're going to be happy. But what they find out is they get to the end of their life and they realize that all the chances they didn't take, all the risks they didn't go after, and then ultimately they die with regrets. And so when you have a big enough why in your mind of what you're here to do and what you're here to accomplish, and you wake up every day and you set that intention, it's pretty incredible what you can start to accomplish over time. And the first thing you have to do is love yourself. You have to take care of yourself at your core. And it's pretty incredible what can start to happen from that point.
Wow. Wow. That's so powerful. That's so powerful.
Thank you.
When you talk about, loving oneself, and then moving from victim to being a victor, taking power away from the problem. And I think that is what we need right now to keep creating, this narrative and changing the narrative from what it used to be to what we are discussing right in here, right now, so that we can take away power from the problem and put power right in our hands. And we have people who are free to show their vulnerability, people who are free to speak about their emotions, people who are free to own up their essence, to really be who they want to be in life. And that is what you have just delivered in that, answer to the question, Chris. Thank you so much. Dr. Cass.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kunle. So as I am hearing you talk and Kunle talking about what he is drawing from what you're saying, what's coming up for me is, how can we help men be comfortable with feeling and actually finally accept the fact that they are feeling beings? They're not thinking beings who happen to feel. They are feeling beings who have the capacity to think and act. Based on your experience, how can we bring that forward and help men come to terms with it? Because it doesn't matter what the world says. If they can't relate to it and come to terms with it, they're never going to go there.
That's a great question. There's a couple things that come to my mind when you ask me that question. And I think number one, it goes back to what I just said before. It's about surrounding ourselves with those empowered people. Like I know that I have helped a lot of strong men break down and become vulnerable. And when you do that, you realize there's a whole other aspect of your personality that you've been missing out on. And it's a lot of work to put up the egoic self, right? Oh, I'm strong and I've got everything taken care of, and I'm not a weakling. I'm not a wimp or anything else. That's exhausting. But when you finally you get around people and you realize that to communicate those feelings and those emotions is to heal, is to let out that pressure and to not have to be always on and always worried about what other people think. I think that's a big thing of it is so many guys are worried about what they think. They have to be powerful for their men. I mean, we saw the Will Smith situation when he went up and slapped, Chris Rock. And we've heard, that was a situation where his wife looked at him and said, "What are you going to do about it? Are you going to go be a man and take care of this or what?" And that's what he felt like he needed to do in those moments. And unfortunately, he made the wrong decision. So it really is about, finding the opportunity for us to be able to be stronger and realize that the biggest thing that's happening in the world today is the fact that we're tolerating too much. And so my exercise that I invite people to do is take out a good old fashioned piece of paper and write down what you're tolerating from yourself, most importantly, what you're tolerating from other people. And then the third thing is what you're tolerating from inanimate objects. And what happens is most people find out, they think that they're not tolerating too much from themselves or from other people or from objects. But I encourage them to really pay attention to that. And they'll come back to me in a couple of weeks and they'll have a bunch of stuff. And the first thing they'll say is like, "Wow, Chris, I didn't realize how much stuff I was putting up with." And I said, "Okay, what would it feel like if you were able to knock 3 of those things off? How different would your life feel like about the things you're tolerating from perhaps friends or from coworkers or from family members or from your spouse? What would happen if you address those situations, build up the strength to be able to not tolerate anymore? How much more energy, how much more love would you have in your soul for yourself and for other people around you?" And inevitably, 100% of the time, people are not aware of how much they're tolerating. Number two, they're not aware of how easy it is to stop tolerating those things by having those tough conversations. And when you have those tough conversations, that's where the healing starts to happen. That's where the growth starts to happen. And what happens most of the time is people realize it's not that hard. It's just that taking that imperfect action step after step and realizing as you do it, you're growing a little bit stronger. And it's like putting money in the bank. And as you grow a little bit stronger and you take a little bit better care of yourself and you speak a little bit better to yourself and you surround yourself with better people and you take that imperfect action every day, you start to live life. And when you start to live life, you start to get that endorphin rush, that serotonin rush, that excitement. Today, what can I accomplish? What fear can I accomplish today? How can I get in my comfort zone today? And progressively over a period of time, that compounds on itself and you become that different person. It's not overnight. It's not easy, but I can guarantee you it is worth it at the end of the day.
Wow, that sounds so good. That sounds
Thank
so
you.
good. And as you were speaking, yeah, it was just coming to my head how we can also take a collective responsibility. I mean, you've spoken expressly about taking personal responsibility, which is absolutely important in moving us from where we are to supposed to be, and also changing a whole lot of narratives. But I also understand the place of collective responsibility in how it shapes, a culture, how people behave. And in several places that we have created conversations about mental health, about what we are talking about today, there is one common denominator, and that's the societal influence, how the society influences the people. How do we change this narrative in the society right now, making everyone come to that understanding of all the things that we are talking about, that they are okay. It's okay to show your emotions. It's okay to cry as a man. It's okay to speak up. It's not weak to speak. How do we change that so we build a collective responsibility of giving a space to men who can freely express themselves without bottling up things, Chris?
That's a huge question. I believe it all starts with us. I believe it starts with the conversation we're having right now. I believe that when we all use our collective voice, I have my own podcast show, as we all have the collective conversation and realize really the important thing is that we're more the same than we are different. No matter where you're at in your life, no matter what your upbringing is, we're all more the same than we are different. So again, it's really recognizing the fact that if we continue to do the same things over and over again, we should expect to get the same results. And there's a great book out there written by a hospice nurse called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And what we need to have in our life is leverage in order to make those changes. So Think about it in future self-respect. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as a victim? Do you want to be remembered as somebody who blamed everybody else? Or do you want to be a part of the collaborative solution? And again, it's about surrounding yourself with those right people. Because if you're around the right people, and I have the best people around me as well, they're the ones that'll say, hey, Chris, I've noticed a change in your attitude. Hey, Chris, I noticed you've been a little negative lately. Hey, Chris, is there something on your mind that you need to talk about? Being able to have those people in your life that sit there and say, hey, Kunle, how are you doing? And then actually stop and listen and care. That's how we're going to start to change things is being involved in our lives to make sure that we're the best that we can possibly be. And I believe that starts with making sure that we're hydrated, making sure we have proper nutrition, make sure we're getting proper sleep, making sure we're getting vitamin D, making sure we're getting some exercise. So many people aren't taking care of themselves. And so what are they doing? They feel like crap. And what happens when you feel like crap? You make bad decisions. When you make bad decisions, you feel like crap again. So you make more bad decisions. You go to your short-term gratifications and it becomes the spiral. So I believe that once you start taking better care of yourself, you surround yourself with the right people, and you start taking those imperfect actions, that's where that ability to have that confidence to be able to share from your soul starts to happen. And I really believe, and this is not a fairy tale or a rose-colored glasses, I really believe that this younger generation that's coming up, they're the ones that are going to break a lot of this curse. They're the ones that are collaborating and standing tall and not identifying, based on labels or based on how somebody looks. I see my son playing with kids. That's the beautiful part is I believe as we continue to learn and have these conversations and people feel comfortable, it's that growth is going to happen. And I've been personally witness to so many men coming to me and saying, man, you're so macho, but you talk about your vulnerable feelings. And I've inspired them to do the same thing because I'm like, it's just a matter of making that choice no longer to keep it bottled up inside, because the only person that you're hurting and you're killing is yourself. And ultimately, you don't want to get to the end of your game and look back on your life and go, wow, I spent my entire life being a victim. I spent my entire life blaming everybody else, and now my life is over. And that to me is a crime that nobody should really experience. That we should all have the opportunity to sit there and say, I'm not going to be that person that I was yesterday. I'm going to have that strong empowerment belief to be able to right the wrongs in our life. And ultimately, it has to come from a point of seeing it from the other person's perspective. So for me, with my mother, when I realized if I had grown up in the time that she had grown up, and she was born in 1942, a lot of things were going on. She was born to parents that were very young and abusive. So had I gone through those experiences like she did, might I have been like her? And the answer was yes. And so when I was able to let go of that anger and that animosity and that blame for her picking the cats over me and all those different things, and to realize that those things were preparing me for what's next, my whole entire perspective shifts. And I can just implore that everybody listening and watching this right now, go seek help. I've seen therapists, I've seen psychiatrists, I've been on medication, I have mentors, I journal, I meditate. I constantly look for ways to find that inner peace. I'm reading books on inner peace. I've learned about breath work. I've learned about meditation. I have been taking that proactive responsibility in my life to find ways to be able to be the best person I could possibly be and not continue on those curses. So it's really about that personal empowerment and surrounding yourself with mentors and coaches and people that are going to lift you up and get you to challenge you with your perspective. So I think that's there's so many different ways, but I think that's a great one for people to start with. And it doesn't cost you any money. So there's no excuse.
That is such fantastic advice, Chris. How can people get a hold of you now that they've watched this and they want to, pick your brain, seek your counsel, hire you as their coach, help them get out of this, everything is somebody's blame, and all of a sudden get out of it and have a no-nonsense coach?
Yes. Thank you, Cass. It's really super simple. Noexcusescoach.com. If you go to www.noexcusescoach.com, all my social media is there. I have a podcast called Raw and Unscripted with Christopher Rausch. I've been doing it for 5 years. It's a top 10% globally rated podcast. There's tons of information. I do walk and talk YouTube videos. There's tons of content in there. Please reach out, and I would be happy to gift anybody a complimentary coaching session from this conversation because of the service that you guys are providing. I just want to go out there and help. And if nothing else, if we can just do that for each other every single day, just go out there and do one thing for somebody else every single day. The power of giving is really the gift in getting, because we realize that when we give of ourselves, it's pretty incredible what we can get back. So I highly encourage everybody out there to go do something nice for a stranger every single day. Get out of your comfort zone, and please feel free to contact me at noexcusescoach.com.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Coach Kunle, would love to hear your nugget of wisdom as we bring this to a close.
Wonderful. And that has been a very, very great one from Chris right in there. And I really want to thank you for that complimentary session that you offer. People who will come after listening to this. So people who are watching, no excuses, because the no excuses coach had really given you that time to reach out to him. So you just go right in there and check noexcusescoach.com. Exactly. I love that. It's been amazing. It's been wonderful. And then you really dealt with, some of the salient issues, men in our society as regards their mental health and what they need to do, starting from taking personal responsibility to collective responsibility. Dr. Kaz, it's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
How do you see it?
Thank you so much, Kunle. It has been a delight to kick off our co-hosting journey. And Chris, we're buddies. It is an absolute joy every time we talk. You help me see different perspectives, and you give me tools to go and help my male colleagues and my male clients when I'm doing business with them. So I cannot thank both of you gentlemen enough, because you both embody what we are trying to help other men accomplish. And thank you for showing up in a way that it gives permission for others to have the courage to be vulnerable. There is more courage in being vulnerable than being macho, because one is posturing, the other is genuine. And thank you for that. And to our audience out there, masculinity has a comfort level of embodying the right amount of femininity, because it's energy. As a whole person, we each embody the masculine and feminine energy. That is not a gender statement. That is an energy statement, and your soul is made up of energy. So to be a whole person, embrace your soul, show up as a being with a soul, and that means you're going to figure out a way to feel and hold space for other people to feel. And please take the opportunity provided, reach out to Chris, and truly start your no nonsense journey, no excuses journey right away. Because you know why? You were made imperfectly perfect for your journey. And so just go make it happen.
Yes, stay unstoppable. Thank you guys so much. This has been a great conversation. And thank you guys for going out there and making this world a better place for who you guys are and what you do.